Welcome to this episode of the Confidence Through Health podcast. My name is Jerry Snyder, and in this episode, I interviewed Nancy Chan, or have a conversation with Nancy Chan, the CEO of Epion Brands. And she talks about, or we talk about omega-3 fatty acids, and specifically Kori Krill Oil, which is as she describes it, is the purest form of omega-3 that can be found. And we talk about where it's found and all of that. But we talk about the importance of omega-3, which if you've heard me talk about in previous episodes, that, omega-3 fatty acids are super important to your overall health, to your brain health, to your mental clarity. And the ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 is very important, and to other omegas, omega-9, et cetera. We talk about a little bit of that, and we talk about why she got into it from her own health issues that she had. And she saw the benefit of omega-3 and what it can do to you, and how it can help your health. And so I think it's a great, and I know a lot of people that I talk to that are confused about omega fatty acids. They're confused about omega-3. They're confused about, they hear that they should be taking fish oil, but they don't really know why. And so we break all that down. And we talk about why it's important and where it comes from and what are the best sources. And she actually has, as the CEO of her company, she's offering 20% off for first time purchase. And I'll link up how you can get that in the show notes. So you just click on the link in the show notes and it should take you there. This will be available through March 1st of 2023. So if you hear this episode, go check that out. My family has started taking them, and I've seen some benefits already from taking that with compared to the other omega-3s that we took. So highly recommend it. But it's definitely an episode that will answer some questions for you when it comes to the fatty acids and why they're important, and what types of fats you should be looking for and where you should get them from. So welcome, Nancy, to the Confidence Through Health podcast.
Thanks for having me, Jerry.
So you obviously know a lot about omega-3 and Kori Krill Oil, and we'll get into that. But I wanted to first find out, why is that a passion of yours, and what got you into helping provide this to people out there as a good nutrition source?
Yeah, for me, it's a twofold story. I mean, I spent my career in marketing, building brand love for a lot of brands, and I was presented with an opportunity to be able to not just help improve the health of Americans, but there's a really inspiring founding story behind why we created Epion and the Kori brand. And that's very much also anchored to me as a consumer. So most of my career has been anchored not so much in the supplement category, but I had always been an omega user as early as in my 20s. And I used it for reasons that was much more related to skin health. And I had stopped taking my omega because I had a negative experience with the products that were out there at the time. And more recently, in the last couple of years, I was reintroduced to it by this really novel ingredient source, which is made from krill oil. And the inspiring story behind it really is around allowing me to kind of pursue personal passion, which is building brand love, but also with an opportunity, because when I was made aware of some of the amazing statistics behind omegas and our kind of quote unquote love affair or lack of love affair nowadays with omegas, I said, hey, you know what? There's a real opportunity for my team and I to be able to create a brand to really make a difference in the health of Americans. And one of the key staggering stats that I had learned before I, went on this adventure was the fact that over 70% of Americans are deficient in omega-3.
Right.
And that's a huge number, right? And omega-3s are, I believe, one of the most hardest working supplements you can actually have, because the health benefits that omega-3s provide are so vast. I mean, we know very much, I think, that omega-3s are very much associated with heart health and supporting heart health.
Right.
But I think what a lot of people don't realize is the versatility and how hardworking it is. I mean, it can also support your brain health, your eyes, your heart. In addition, your joint, your skin, and immune health, as well as a slew of other health benefits. So my mission now with my team is really to figure out how do we inspire Americans to quote unquote get off our bums and incorporate more omega-3s into our health and wellness regimen.
Right. Well, and it is, and and one of the things as a health coach that I do is I try to always experiment, if you will, on myself when I hear something that like, hey, this is something that's supposed to help people in this way, and so I'll start taking the supplement myself to find out like, okay, is this something that, because I'm in touch with my body and I understand being just as healthy as I am, that I'll know if there's a big reaction or not. And when I first came across omega-3s being that we're deficient and that, our ratios are wrong as far as the other omegas. And I was like, okay, so let me start taking some omega-3. And yeah, I mean, the balance that I felt through all my systems, like, and I know it's sold mostly as a heart health, supplement, but I felt my emotions were better. My productivity and brain fog got better. Like, my skin's better. Like there's so many things that I'm like, I can attribute to that because that was the only thing that changed.
That's really great to hear. Not everybody feels an immediate effect with omega-3s. And
Right.
I think that's a really important thing to have an opportunity to explain to your listeners if they didn't realize that, right? Because supplements are not meant to be medicine, though we
Right.
know that there's a lot of ingredients in supplements nowadays that can help provide an instant reaction, right? And I think about the world of, say, for example, immune supplements, melatonin, for example. These are supplements that will give you a sense of, hey, I'm feeling something different. I'm feeling an effect. But with omega-3s, I think the challenge as well as the opportunity for omega-3s is that historically, I think omega-3s were really recommended when we got older. And when we got older, we would go to the doctor and, do our annual checkup and we would get our blood tests and the doctor would come back to say, hey, Nancy, your triglycerides, your cholesterols are looking a little bit high. I recommend you start taking omega. And so the trigger for us was always, I think, medical based by our doctors. But the ability and the opportunity for omegas is that with all these other health benefits that I mentioned, if we start taking omegas at a younger age and start earlier, it actually does so much to help our whole health holistically. And I think it sets us up for just so much of a stronger, healthier mind and body. By the time we get to the doctor at that age and he's taking my blood, that's not even going to become an issue anymore.
Right.
Yeah. So to me, it's a long-term investment in your health.
Right. Yeah. It's a very preventative measure to take. And it's something that in our traditional food supply right now that we're lacking in omega-3s.
So you're spot on. I mean, having this conversation with you is amazing. If I could have this type of conversation with everybody, it would make my job so much easier. You're spot on because, in America, we have a very heavy meat diet. We tend to prefer that. And the best source to get your omega-3s, everybody that I meet, I always say, try your best to get it through seafood, especially fatty fish like salmon. That is the gold standard to getting your omega-3s. But I recognize that, one, not everybody likes seafood, and not everybody can always have seafood. It's not always accessible. And if you're someone like that, then supplements, omega supplements, and hopefully a supplement like Kori Krill Oil can become a go-to source for you to be able to get those vital omega-3s that you really need.
Well, and you hit the nail on the head with the seafood's not always available because sometimes it is available in the grocery store, but you have to be careful of where it's coming from. Because farmed fish, there's a whole other list of things that could be, high mercury levels and other issues there. And so you really are looking for the wild caught, and then it becomes a transportation issue to get to you. And so then it may be there, but then it's so high priced because of the expense to get it to you that it may not be possible for you.
Absolutely. And again, recognizing that it's why when we created Kori, one of the novel things about the sources of how we're creating this omega-3 supplement is actually through more of a newer, more unknown source, which is Antarctic krill. And there's a purity behind krill because krill is actually at the very beginning of the marine food chain. And the only thing that krill really feed on is phytoplankton. So it doesn't have the contamination that other species higher up in the food chain might then have. And krill are these little nutrient creating powerhouses where what happens is after they feed on the phytoplankton, they're able to create within them all of the omega-3s that we get. But also with krill, we also get additional nutrients like choline, another essential nutrient, which is really good in supporting brain health and nervous system health. So like I said, my goal is to be able to help people understand that there are options in how you can get your omega-3s, not just some of your traditional ones you might be more used to, like a fish oil. And there's a new option out there that hopefully you all after this podcast will believe is a smarter, harder working omega-3 option.
Well, and there's a couple of things that you hit on that I wanted to touch on. But first off, for like a lot of people, they're going to be like, okay, I've tried fish oil before, and I don't, because I've heard this from my clients before. They're like, oh, but I burp up fish smelling all the time, and I don't want that, right? Like that's an issue.
So I'm going to raise my hand and admit that was the exact reason why I stopped taking fish oils in my 20s, because I was someone who experienced that burp back, excuse me. And I think the key difference here of why I'm so excited about Kori and krill, and one of the benefits we can deliver to people is that with krill, when we create our krill oil supplement, we're able to retain something called phospholipids. And that is what I call the advantage of being able to make krill such a different supplement than traditional fish oils. The easiest way for me to help explain this is that fish oil will lose phospholipids in processing. So if you were to eat salmon and seafood, you will get a combination of your omega-3s delivered through a triglyceride as well as a phospholipid.
Right.
When fish oil supplements are created, they lose the phospholipids. Now, krill oil, when we create Kori Krill Oil, we retain the phospholipids. And what's so key about that is that every human cell is actually every one of our human cells contains phospholipids.
Right.
It's a key part of our cell membranes. And so what happens is that when we're delivering the omega-3 nutrients, your body is actually naturally more compatible because it already contains phospholipids. So it's much more agreeable. And when we're able to deliver the omega-3 nutrients, a couple of really wonderful things happen. Phospholipids are actually more water soluble than triglycerides are. So because they're more water soluble, when they go into our body, we're able to better process them in an easier way. Our bodies don't have to work so hard, because our cells are already looking for it. They're more water soluble. And so naturally what happens is that you don't get the burp back. With triglycerides, think of it as the analogy is oil and water. When you think about oil and water, they kind of are two layers that kind of sit on top of each other, right?
Right.
Triglycerides are like that, so that when you actually take something like a fish oil supplement, it just kind of sits there in your belly, and your belly has to work harder to kind of break that down and be able to absorb that. And while it's kind of sitting as this oily layer, that's what's causing the burp backs. And that's a key advantage that we have with krill oil. Now, that may not be a huge thing for a lot of people, but the other advantage combined with not having any fishy burps is that these phospholipids can allow us a more efficient, better delivery of these omega nutrients. So you get better absorption and better bioavailability through krill oil.
Well, and that's a key piece to any supplement is you want to make sure that you're absorbing it. Because there's a lot of things out there that a lot of people take that it's just expensive urine, and it's just like, I mean, because it's just it's not getting absorbed and it's just leaving their body, and they don't necessarily know it, and whether it's through the supplement itself or the other food they're eating, or it just doesn't get absorbed. And so if you're able to, if that's happening and you're getting a higher absorption rate, I think that's a huge difference maker.
Yeah, I believe so too. And our scientists have done some studies where we've done some meta-analyses of the different clinical studies that have been conducted, and we're seeing a higher rate of absorption, anywhere from 2 to 3 times higher versus some other marine sources like fish oil. And the really great thing about that is we can deliver that higher absorption without doing any added processing, without adding any other ingredients. krill, because it contains the phospholipids, it naturally is more like that.
Right. And so one of the other things you touched on, which my wife and I love National Geographic shows, and so we don't watch a lot of TV, but every night we sit and we watch about 30 minutes of something. And one that we recently watched maybe a month ago was on Antarctica, and so they looked at the ecosystem, and krill was one of the things they talked about, and like how abundant it is, but also that it's in such a pure state, because Antarctica, the waters around Antarctica are still relatively untouched compared to like the Pacific Ocean or Atlantic Ocean when it comes to pollution and things like that. And so was that a factor in deciding to go, towards krill to find this supplement, that you're looking for something that is not dealing with pollution and that's not in the area?
This is the other half of the inspiring story that made me join the team and create this brand. And if you'll allow me, it starts
Yeah.
with the story of our founder and our mother company, and a Norwegian businessman, a gentleman was very successful with roots in the Norwegian fishing industry.
Mm-hmm.
And as a youth, he acquired so much of this knowledge. He came to the US and created one of the most successful fishing businesses in Alaska that this country has ever seen. When he went back to Norway, he recognized that it was the ocean and the sea that helped him create this fortune. And he has always had a personal passion for it. Now, being as successful as he is, it also meant that he had a lot of courage to kind of go into new spaces and new areas. And he was one of the first to really recognize the health benefits that krill could bring. And he created a company called Aker Baumarine, which is our mother company. We're fully owned by them, but we run independently. And Aker Baumarine is the world's largest supplier of krill oil. And his thinking there was to say, hey, I recognize the amazing health benefits that krill can bring. Antarctica is an area in the southern oceans which contains the highest concentration of krill. It's also an area that is, to your point, very pristine.
Mm-hmm.
So the driving force for him, there obviously was a commercial opportunity, recognizing the deficiencies that consumers have. But there's also this personal recognition of the responsibility he has as a fisherman at heart to say, if I'm going to go anywhere, I need to make sure that I am not going to in any way create a negative impact to the environment that I'm going into. So sustainability is the core foundation of everything that we do as a brand. And that was the other half of the inspiring story for me that said, wow, I love all of the technology that's been built. I love your commitment to this. I want to be part of this story to bring the benefits of krill, but be able to also explain to everybody that when we bring this product to market, we're doing it in the most sustainable way so that we have the least impact on the environment,
Right.
so that we are keeping the resources in Antarctica as pristine as possible. And the amount of technology that's been invested, I mean, we've invested close to $800 million in technology over the last 10 years to ensure that we have this minimal impact. We do things such as we employ drone technology and sailboats for us to be able to locate the krill so that our large harvesting vessels are not expending fuel, quote unquote, driving around the ocean looking for the krill. We're utilizing this type of technology. We also have a patented technology in terms of how we harvest the krill so that we minimize bycatch. Now, in a traditional kind of fishing operation, which is the case when you catch seafood as well as when you catch fish to make fish oil supplements, think about the concept of trawling in a net. You have to cast the net out from your boat. The net kind of sinks down. And then what ends up happening is that you have to haul that catch onto the boat. In that process, as you're hauling the catch up, what happens is that you tend to attract a lot of the predatory animals that feed on the fish. Those predatory animals get caught in the net as you're hauling them up, and you create bycatch. And a lot of times there's a high risk that that bycatch ends up into your supply chain, into your product. With our patented technology, we have the ability to stay completely submerged. So we actually don't have to bring the nets up. We have this amazing vacuum technology that immediately brings the krill on board,
Oh,
and it's
cool.
only large enough to bring krill. So we know,
Right.
so it's an ability for us to minimize the bycatch, and then we immediately process the krill to ensure that we're processing it fresh, we're processing it with minimal bycatch. So you get not just a higher quality product, but we're also doing it in a way that, again, minimizes our impact on the ecosystem where we're harvesting.
Right. Because krill are small.
They're very small. An
Yeah.
adult, for the most part, can grow to about maybe 2 inches.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a fun kind of party fact I can share with you about krill that is unlike any other animal that's out there. That it's actually really hard to tell the age of a krill, because what happens is that they go through this thing I kind of call the Benjamin Button cycle, where
Okay.
krill can grow and shrink based on the time of the year, based on how much feed they have. So you
Oh,
can't really
wow.
tell how old a krill is based on its size. But what we've found is actually through their eyes, which stay constant, almost like rings on a tree. That's how you can tell the age of a krill.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Huh. So how old do they typically, like, what's their lifespan?
I mean, they can live for several years for
Okay.
sure. And in that, like they go through this growing and
This,
shrinking
yeah.
phase. Yeah.
Interesting. Um, so in, like you said, the average person is deficient in omega-3, right?
Unfortunately.
And so are they deficient in other omega, because I mean, it's omega-3 because there's multiple different omega fatty acids, and some are good and some are bad. Is that something that, like, are we way overboard in one area, and, like, since we're deficient in omega-3?
I wouldn't say that we're way overboard in another area. I think the three most well-known ones are omega-3s, omega-6s, and omega-9s, right? I'll kind of work backwards. Omega-9s, our bodies are actually able to make them on our own.
Right.
So they're not an essential nutrient. So most of us are not deficient in omega-9s. Omega-6s is the next grouping. And we're not really deficient in omega-6s either, because we can actually get quite an abundance of them in the diet that is part of the standard American diet. So when you think about nuts, vegetable oil, eggs, and things of that nature, we get a healthy dose of omega-6s, which
Right.
means it's really just the poor omega-3s that are kind of the odd guy out. And
Right.
again, it comes back to my mission of why I need to help us get off our bums and do something about our omega-3 levels.
Yeah. And it's not something that we're able to synthesize ourselves.
No,
We
we
have
can.
to get it. We have to ingest it from somewhere else.
Absolutely.
So what, and we talked about the other benefits, other than just the heart health, but in the choline piece, like, what, like you said, brain health, but, like, why was that an important piece to keep in, whereas, other fish oils don't have that, or other sources of omega-3 don't have that?
It's not that it was important to keep in, but it's about recognizing, again, krill as this small powerhouse that can provide so many nutrients, right? And recognizing that choline is naturally occurring in krill. There was no reason for us to process it out. So
Right.
our approach was to say it's naturally occurring. We know choline is another essential nutrient that many of us are also deficient in. So why would we take something so powerful out of the krill? And so our intent was to say, this is what krill delivers naturally in its natural state. We want to be able to ensure that we can actually keep as much as possible of those wonderful nutrients whole when we deliver it as a supplement product.
Okay. And so why, like, omega-3 is obviously because it's deficient and all of that. Are there any other things that y'all are working on that, like, go along with that, or, that you see on the horizon is like, okay, we've got this supplement, we're promoting it, but then there's also this other area that we want to focus on that fish can provide for us?
Yeah, I would say my main goal really, again, is to anchor in the expertise of krill oil omega
Mhm.
3s. And I
Okay.
feel like we have a huge mission to be able to do that type of education and create that awareness. And we have some really exciting innovation on the horizon. Actually, this year we just launched two new additions to our pure krill portfolio. And the first one was actually pairing krill oil with some additional partner ingredients to help us deliver even more benefits. So
Oh, cool.
recognizing that, for example, brain health is an area where Americans are actually voicing a huge need for nowadays. We know that omega 3s in and of themselves provide brain support, but what we wanted to do is to be able to say, how do we make an even stronger brain product that
Mhm.
combines the power of omega 3s and potentially some other clinically studied ingredients like lutein and zeaxanthin, which are plant antioxidants. So we actually brought those together as combination ingredients, and we launched a product called Kori Mind and Body, which is able to actually give you added brain support as well as the whole body support that you would get from omegas. So that's a new innovation that we brought in this year. We
That's cool.
also recently launched gummies, recognizing that not everybody likes to swallow a soft gel. And
Right.
we probably have a lot of soft gels or pills in our health and wellness repertoire. So we said, how do we maybe find a way to make it a bit more enjoyable? The dosages are a little bit lower, but what we're able to do is create and lean into the enjoyable format that gummies offers to hopefully attract more people into the omega category. So we're excited about that. We've got some more coming at the beginning of next year. But the focus of what we're doing is always to anchor ourselves in krill and what krill can offer as kind of that core
Right.
foundational ingredient.
Well, and the gummies, that's like from like we talked about with the longevity prevention piece, like because I've got two kids. They're well, one just became a teenager, the other's a preteen, and one of them will swallow pills, and the other one will not. Like absolutely, just she's like I can't do it. Which is where I was when I was a kid. I was like I just couldn't do it for whatever reason. Um, and I think that's a huge game changer. Being able to provide that so that kids can start, or teens can start that maybe aren't is happy taking, swallowing pills, that they can have a gummy, like you said, that's a more enjoyable experience and can start them on that omega-3 boosting, if you will, so that later in life they don't have to have that moment with the doctor and say, well, now we have to play catch up.
Yeah, that would be an amazing opportunity. And my husband would probably be so mad at me for saying this, but my husband is a fully grown adult who has a hard time swallowing pills.
Yeah.
So he was so excited when we launched the gummies as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's a legitimate issue that some people have. And it's, so with omega-3 being like, it is so deficient, and it's not something that if we're deficient, like it's going to just automatically be a cure. I think you mentioned that before. Like you're not automatically going to see, a drastic change in 2 days that you're going to
Right,
notice, right?
right.
It's going to be a long-term thing. And so from a dosing standpoint, is that something that obviously with working with their doctor, to find out like maybe how deficient they are or where they are, but is that, I know you have, different dosages. Is that something that is addressed? And like, if somebody just wanted to look it up and buy it, like, how do you recommend which they start with?
Yeah, here's the really great thing with evolving health and wellness technology nowadays. You can actually figure out how much EPA, DHA, omega 3 levels you have in your blood on your own without even needing to go to a doctor. And so there's actually something called an omega 3 index test. And it's an at home kit. And all you have to do is kind of poke your finger with it. You get a couple of drops of blood, and then you send it in. And a week or two later, you log on to a site, and you can actually then find out what percentage of EPA DHA in your blood, and it'll give you a sense of where you are in the scale of what is recommended. And what I can say is
Right.
that most Americans are probably hovering in the 4% or below 4% range. And what's really recommended for optimal health is for us to get that into the 6 to 8% range to give you a
Okay.
sense of where we need to get to. So the lovely thing is you don't need to wait for your doctor to understand and know. The other lovely thing about that is that if you do start taking omegas, you can actually then take that omega test again and actually then see how you're starting to move along that
Oh,
spectrum.
right.
When we created Kori, what we recognize is that there's no daily established value for omega
Right.
3s, unlike other supplements. So, what we did to try to make things easier for consumers is to say, hey, we know that the US dietary guidelines recommends that you have 2 servings of seafood a week. And that's
Mhm.
roughly about 8 ounces of, say, fatty fish is, again, gold standard, right? So we said what we're going to do is then be able to give the equivalent of that. So when you translate the 8 ounces of seafood, hopefully fish, that roughly equals 250 milligrams of EPA DHA. With
Okay.
Kori, every serving of Kori that you take in our soft gels provides you that 250 milligrams of EP and DHA. So you don't have to take the guessing
Right.
into what's the dosage I should get. And the clinical studies that we've done at this dosage rate say that for the most part, you will start to see a shift in your omega-3 index were you to kind of take a before and after, that you'll start to see that needle move as early as 30 days.
Okay. So it is something you're going to have to, because we're all in this like quick fix, and I want to be able to be, and I think part of that is, because we have pain pills or whatever, and we could take it and we feel better in 30 minutes or 2 hours. And so
Yeah.
we expect everything to work that way when it
Yeah.
doesn't. Some things take time to build up and be absorbed. And if we're truly at 4%, we need to get to 8%. We're halfway where we need to be. So it's going
Yeah.
to take time to get there.
Yes.
It's not something that's just going to be an immediate.
Yes, it isn't. And like I said, and what you've already articulated, it's a long-term investment in your
Mhm.
health. Yeah.
Yeah. And you also mentioned, though, you said, you don't have to wait for your doctor to understand, all the benefits of omega-3, because I think a lot of doctors, they understand the heart benefit, but they don't
Mhm.
understand the other benefits of it. And so, it can be, and it's no fault to them. There's just so much stuff they're keeping up with and being researched on and all of that. But if they were to say, well, you don't need to take that because you don't have a heart issue,
Right.
that's not necessarily that accurate information that we know nowadays.
Yeah, and that's why opportunities like this, where I can come on board and do some of that education, is so needed and so appreciated when we're trying to get that education out and supplementing what you might be hearing from your doctor or your physician.
So speaking of education, is there anything else that omega-3s provide that I haven't that we haven't talked about there that I'm missing that I need to know about?
I mean, like I said, the health benefits of omega-3s are so vast. I really believe they're one of the hardest working nutrients that we can have in our bodies. And there's consistently studies that are coming out that show the benefits. And the world of science, I think, is going to continue to evolve. What I can share that has also gotten me very excited is that we published some studies earlier this year where we did some clinical studies on the effects of krill omega-3s in supporting muscle strength and muscle mass, especially in older seniors. So as we get
Oh,
older, we
wow.
know muscle mass decreases,
Right.
muscle strength decreases, and we've shown through that study how krill oil omegas can support that to keep you, again, healthier as you get older. So it's a great, again, investment early now to help you as you get older. So that was
Wow.
really exciting. And then the other one for some of the hardcore trainers or athletes in us, we also published another study this year that talks about the benefits that krill specifically can have on sports recovery and sports training. And what usually happens is that when we go through intense levels of exercises, our body goes through a lot of oxidative stress, right? And what
Right.
we found is that your choline levels are dramatically decreased in these high intense workout sessions. And so what krill is able to do, because it naturally contains choline, is it's able to replenish those depleted levels. And actually the net benefit of that is it helps you recover faster so that you're actually ready for your next session, which I
Right.
think is a really another amazing learning from the studying perspective. And it has a whole host of applications as well. I mean, I'm not necessarily aspiring to be Olympic athlete, but knowing it
Right.
has that benefit, that's another reason I think for me, as the average gal trying to get more exercise and activity while I'm getting older, to recognize that this could be another tool to help me kind of stay active and fit.
Well, and I look at a study like that as like it if obviously there's a component that they're looking at, like the athletics and that piece of it, but if it's helping their body recover faster, if I'm not an athlete, it's still going to help my body recover faster from whatever stress I'm under. If
Again,
if
yes.
it's just work stress or whatever.
Yes, it's a spot on. Like I said, even though I'm kind of an average gal and I don't aspire to be an Olympic athlete, I know that as I get older and I'm pushing my body to stay more active, I'm feeling the effects of becoming older. So the thought of having that benefit, even for me, is still very appealing. And I hope that it becomes the case for some of your listeners as well.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it's very evident through this conversation that, it's a key piece to the puzzle for every function of your body, basically.
Yes.
Like we need it. And it's more than just your heart health. It's more than just your brain health. It's, because like you said, research coming out about muscles. You said you noticed it in your skin. I've noticed it in my skin. Like it, not that it's a magic pill, but it's definitely showing that it's such a vital nutrient to everything that we do.
Yes, absolutely. And what part of my job is as well is to be able to educate and tell people that there are different sources of
Mm,
omega-3 that you can choose. And hopefully through this discussion that your listeners will recognize there is a source out there that's made from krill that actually is harder working, that delivers additional benefits than some of the traditional sources that you might be used to. And hopefully that gets everyone excited to want to learn more about krill and its
right.
benefits. Yeah.
Yeah. And that, like you said, there's a lot out there and I've seen them and I've looked because there's omega-3 plus this and omega-3 plus that. And there's such a wide variety of what's out there. But like with any supplement, you really have to look at it and understand not just what's in it, but where what's in it came from.
That's the hope of what people will understand makes Kori different.
Mhm.
We are also the only vertically integrated krill oil brand. So our mother company, like I said, is the world's largest maker of krill oil. And so we have the visibility through when we harvest the krill to when we actually put a bottle of Kori on the shelf or online for you to be able to buy, that we have visibility into the quality control of that and can guarantee that. We're also so focused on krill and krill science that when you want an omega-3 source, you know that when you come to Kori, there's expert and there's science behind what we're offering you because that's our focus.
Right. And I think that's a big key because there's supplements out there that like they're just buying their pieces from wherever is, and sometimes it's just an extra piece that somebody had in their processing,
Mm.
and they're putting it in because it includes whatever vitamin or mineral or whatever they're looking for. And so to be able to know this from the ocean to the bottle, you can track exactly where it's been. I think that's a huge benefit.
I like to believe so as well. And what we also do is that on every pack of Kori, we actually have a QR code so that if you scan it, you can actually see the GPS coordinates of where we actually harvested the krill that went
Oh,
into that
wow.
bottle. So we're, like I said, complete believers in transparency as well. And because we're vertically integrated, we want to be able to offer that same transparency to anyone picking up a bottle of Kori.
That's awesome. So, how it, if somebody, and I don't know, is it how, how many different stores it's in, but if somebody can't find it locally, they can find it online.
Yes, we are available nationwide,
Mhm.
and that's a good thing. So hopefully, we're meeting the convenience needs of whether or not you want to shop offline or online.
Right.
We are available at Walmart, Costco, CVS, Rite Aid, Sam's Club, nationwide. But you can also find us on Amazon and always at KoriKrillOil.com. So if you ever want to come to our brand website, KoriKrillOil.com, and geek out on some more krill facts, that's the
Right.
place where you can find it.
That's awesome. And then if somebody is interested in like, do y'all have a social media platform that you like are posting facts on or anything like that?
We do. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook as well, Kori Krill Oil.
Awesome. Well, Nancy, I greatly appreciate you being on. I think this has been, I mean, to me, omega-3 is a big driver in health, and I understand why. And so to be able to have you come on and share, and specifically about something that is so pure compared to some of the stuff that's out there in nature from start to finish, I think is going to be huge for my listeners to be able to research and get into.
Well, thank you so much for giving me the chance to, like I said, tell the Kori and the Krill story.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Nancy.
Yeah.
Thanks for checking out the All in Health and Wellness Confidence Through Health podcast. Our goal is to use health as a conduit to help you reach your goals in life.
A little lighter than me. I'm about to black out. Her grip is getting tighter on me. I think I like it deep inside. I feel the fire in me. She like the milky, see me cream into the coffee to me. She got soul in her sway.